Hello and welcome to Today News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damlola Ogunshaki. And this morning, I'll be reviewing the front pages of the dailies and also analyzing them. And this morning, I'm starting with the front page of Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with brain drain. We now have one doctor to 6,400 patients. That's coming from medical experts. Says Nigeria in emergency situation. 38.7% of Nigerians suffer healthcare depreciation. That's according to NBS reports, as Nigerian Medical Association asks federal government to act fast. You can see that story on page 5. And here also on page 20, we have Vanguard Mental Health Summit. Nigeria ranks first among world's cannabis-use countries. That's according to BUBA MARWA. And on page 8, 2023, APC makes a U-turn, declares support for BVAS and RF. You can see that on page 8. Still on page 8, DSS withdraws suit against ex-terrorist negotiator Tukur Mamu. And on page 12, NDDC, PANDEF, Ishekiri leaders, Ohaneze divided over Onoche. Why Niger Republic named road after Buhari? That's coming from Presidency. You can see that on page 27. And there's a photo story here. And of course, it was taken at the second Vanguard Mental Health Summit that was held in Lagos yesterday. And here it's showing Professor Taiwo Sheikh, the immediate past President Association of Psychiatrists of Nigeria and coordinator of Vanguard Mental Health Chat Room. We also have Dr. Monica, that's the acting the Director General of NAFDAC, Dr. Shegun Oke, the Zonal Commander, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, representing Brigadier General BUBA MARWA, the Chairman, CEO, NDLEA. And of course, we still have more. We also have the GM, Editor-in-Chief, Vanguard Media Limited, Mrs. Chinenze Amamfo, also a PR lead, Mobile at the second Vanguard Mental Health Summit in Lagos yesterday. Now, stories above on page 15, we have no rift between Obi and me. That's coming from Soludo. Nigeria Air, court extends status quo order. You can see that on page 9. Still on 9, we have 2023 Match Awards with Action. Christian Association of Nigeria attacks presidential candidates. On page 19, Nigeria's growth momentum slows to 2.25% in third quarter of 2022. Lastly, on Vanguard, on encounter, evicted twice, abandoned by wife, homeless for 32 years. Ex-warrant officer narrates ordeal in service. You can see that story on page 15 of Vanguard newspaper. Let's see what The Guardian is leading with this morning. And of course, it's leading with decline in oil. Gas output hampers growth amid recession fears. Nigeria in technical recession, says expert. You can see that on page 6. And the big story on pages 4 and 5. After the floods, picking pieces of ruined investment and livelihoods. And stories above, Senate Committee clears Umana, dismisses 480 billion naira fraud allegation. You can see that on page 7. Lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, we have Sanwo-Olu at LSSTF town hall meeting, promises improved security. You can see that on page 28 of the Guardian newspaper. And the Nation newspaper this morning is leading with NNPCL. Marketers differ over lingering petrol scarcity. Queues lengthens in Lagos, Abuja, and others. Ransom cash recovered from kidnapped victims in Ekiti. 4 policemen shot dead. You can see that on page 2. Stories above, we have Christian Association of Nigeria to Nigerians. Vote your conscience. Lastly, on the front page of The Nation, African teams in sloppy World Cup start. You can see that on page 30 of The Nation newspaper. And lastly, this morning, let's review the front page of the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with electronic transaction. Beware of fraud. Opposition wants INEC. APC recants. You can see that on page 2. Electoral Commission under pressure over beavers. That's coming from PDP. APC has hidden agenda on 2023 election. Labour Party alleges. I am concerned about poor telecoms network, says Adamu. And here we have three photo stories with a writer that says the marketers warn of possible petrol price increase. You can see that on page 30. On pages 4 and 5, kidnappers in army uniform abduct Lagos passenger, probe begins. 3 days to hand over, Oyetola appoint 30 PS. You can see that story on page 8. And the stories above, we have reps worry over federal government and China $475 million deal. You can see that on page 8. Lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, court stops Nigeria Air indefinitely, adjourns case to 2023. And that can be seen on page 30 of the Punch newspaper. That's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break for the analysis. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damlola Ogunshaki. And of course, this is the analysis of the papers. And starting this morning, I'm leading with the story on the Vanguard newspaper. And of course, medical experts have raised the alarm that the ratio of doctors available in the country was now 1 to 6,400 patients as a result of brain drain. The experts, including Chief Medical Director, University of Medical Sciences and Teaching Hospital, Ondo State, Dr. Oluwole Ige, and some others, they spoke in Ondo at the second induction of psychotherapists who recently graduated from the University of Medical Sciences, UNIMED, Ondo. The figure is 5,900 patients higher than the United Nations ratio, a recommended ratio of 1 doctor to 500 patients. It is also 1,400 patients higher than 1 doctor to 5,000 patients, the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, declared late last month at its Anambra chapter's Physicians Week and Scientific Conference in Ninewi. And now, 38.7% of Nigerians suffer healthcare depreciation. Apart from poor access to doctors, access to health facilities is also a challenge, as the recently released multidimensional poverty by the National Bureau of Statistics survey showed that more than one out of every 3 Nigerians suffer deprivation in terms of time to healthcare. Now, according to the report that is titled the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index, a household is deprived if it takes them 30 minutes or more to reach the nearest functional health facility or primary health care center on foot. Now, the survey revealed that 38.7% of Nigerians spend more than 30 minutes to reach the nearest functional health facility. Now, the NMA Secretary General, Dr. Jide, who spoke at the Inewi event, had said the rate at which doctors were migrating for greener pastures posed serious manpower crisis in the health sector, noting that while the UN standard recommended an average of 1 doctor to 500 patients, the ratio had dropped to about 1 to 1,000 in Nigeria due to the declining number of doctors in the country. Now, current statistics, according to the medical experts at the induction ceremony in Ondo, the number has dropped further to 6,400 patients in 1 month. Now, there are worries over the rate at which the medical professionals were leaving Nigeria in search of better opportunities abroad. But of course, when you're talking about this, you also can't blame the doctors because of the situation going on in the country. Now, many people are complaining of, especially when it comes to the inflation, and now things keeps getting expensive, and the doctors are also complaining of salary reduction, saying that their salaries have not been increased. And not only the doctors, we also have the nurses who are also leaving the countries. We hope this will also be looked into. But of course, to get more of this story, the in-depth knowledge on this particular story, get a copy of Vanguard newspaper or visit the Vanguard website. Now, let's move on and talk about the Niger Republic breach. Now, the presidency yesterday said the naming of a road after President Muhammadu Buhari in Niger Republic was an indication of the tremendous respect which Nigeria's neighbor have towards him. Now, the senior special assistant on media and publicity to the president, Malam Garba Shehu, disclosed this in the Nigerian capital, Niamey, after Buhari inaugurated a major road after him. Shehu said President of Niger Republic, Mohammed, accompanied by the mayor and other officials, took Buhari on a tour of the 3.8 kilometer boulevard inaugurated in line with the country's constitutional provisions. The presidential aide quoted Buhari as expressing satisfaction with the existing bilateral relationship between Nigeria and its neighbor. Buhari expressed the relief that such ties had helped tremendously, especially in the areas of tackling border insecurity, illegal arms import, and smuggling. But of course, they are showing their appreciation to the president on the fact that they were named. Of the fact that this was the Niger Republic bridge was named after the president of Nigeria. But now let's move on and talk about the Vanguard Mental Health Summit. Now, Vanguard Mental Health Summit was held yesterday in the Eco Hotel, and of course, the chairman and chief executive officer of National Drug Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA), Brigadier General Muhammad Bawa, retired, has said that Nigeria was #1 cannabis using country in the world, stating that 10.6 million Nigerians abused the drug. He noted that the severity of this situation was unknown until the 2018 United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes supported National Survey on Drug Use and Health was conducted, leading to the worrisome findings. He said that the survey gave them facts for the first time, and they got to know that Nigeria, as of 2018, had a 14.4% drug use prevalence. Now, I said that was an eye-opener, and the statistics may actually not mean much at face value, only by comparison with the danger becoming glaring. And Marwa, who was represented at the event by Zonal Commander NDLEA Lagos, Dr. Segun Oke, said in 22 months, the agency has arrested 20,000 offenders and convicted 3,111 in courts. They've also seized the 5.5 million kg of illicit drugs, destroyed 900 hectares of cannabis farm, and dismantled 2 illicit meth laboratories here in Nigeria. And of course, that's yesterday. They had a lot of people who spoke about the mental health things affecting people, and how some of these things can be solved. In short, one of the speakers yesterday said some of these things, this whole situation we're talking about, mental health, can just be solved with you just bringing out money, to solve the situation. And he gave an example of one of his, his colleague who entered his office and started crying, and he just gave the lady 5,000 naira, and that solved it. But he also mentioned so many things affecting people, especially in the country, when it comes to mental health and the things that they've not noticed. But of course, if you notice anybody going through this, you can always reach out to Lagos State government. And when it comes to drug use also, you can always reach out to NDLEA. Okay, let's move away from that and talk about this one. Now, the Department of State Services, that's DSS, on Thursday withdrew a suit filed at a federal high court, Abuja, to detain the former terrorist negotiator, Tukur Mamu, for 60 more days after his arrest. DSS counsel AM Danlami told Justice Nkeye Maha shortly after the matter was called for hearing. Now, according to Nan, it said that between SSS and Tukur Mamu was listed for further proceeding on the day course list. Now, upon the resumed hearing, Danlami, who sought to withdraw the case, said that the matter has been overtaken by events. But of course, to get more of this story, get a copy of Vanguard newspaper, and you'll see the story there. All right, let's move on to sports. We had the 2 African teams play yesterday in the World Cup, Cameroon and, of course, Ghana. And Cameroon played against Switzerland, and, of course, they were defeated. But Cameroon's 20-year wait for a World Cup victory goes on after Switzerland edged a tense opening match in Group G. Chasing their first final win since 2002, the indomitable Lions wasted several good first-half chances. And, of course, Switzerland, with 3 round of 16 finishes, their last 4 World Cups, should have taken the lead just before the break when Manuel Akanji headed a corner wide from close range. But they made the breakthrough 3 minutes into the second half, with Cameroon-born Mbello side-footed home a sweet first-time cross. When he was unable to celebrate, But of course, and many people on social media, they held him for not release, for not celebrating. And of course, celebrating might have actually been a sign of disrespect to your own country. But of course, it was a good one from you. And the game was also very interesting. Now, let's talk about Uruguay and South Korea. And of course, Uruguay hit the post twice as they failed to register a third World Cup win in 3 matches against South Korea in their Group H opener. Veteran defender Diego Godin, in his fourth World Cup, thumped a header against the base of a post from a corner before halftime, while a thunderous last strike from Federico also found the woodwork. And Wang Ujou also spawned a glorious opportunity for South Korea in their 10th consecutive finals appearances when he fired over the bar from close range in the 34th minute. And of course, Tottenham's Son Heung-min was sporting a protective mask after facial surgery. And Liverpool's Darwin also called efforts wild as neither side could muster a single official shot on target, a World Cup record. And it ended a goalless draw yesterday. That's South Korea and Uruguay. And Ghana lost to Portugal yesterday, and of course Cristiano Ronaldo scored and became the first person to score in 5 World Cup. I mean, that is actually a very good one for Ronaldo. I mean, the legend and the GOAT himself. But of course, Ghana also, they really did very well yesterday. But I think they will also need to do better if they really want to make a speech here. But we have to give it to them that they really did better than what we expected. And yesterday we had a lot of Nigerians comparing them to Super Eagles. Of course, this can actually take us back to what Bruno Fernandes said about Super Eagles, where he's mentioned the fact that they wanted to play, they were looking for a team in the world-class level, but of course they did not see, and they had to settle for Nigeria because that's the only team that they could actually play against. But now they are going to a World Cup where they will play against these World Cup teams. And lucky they played against Ghana, and Ghana really showed them, and they fought to the end. Because Brazil defeated Serbia 2-0, courtesy of Richarlison goals. Now, Richarlison scored an early contender for the goal of tournament as Brazil ended Serbia's stubborn resistance to win their opening match of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Wales today will be playing against Iran, and also Qatar will be playing against Senegal, and so that's another African team. And of course, let's put in mind that Senegal lost their last game, but we're hoping they will do better against the Qatarians. Of course, and also Netherlands will also be playing Ecuador today. And the last is England. England will be playing against USA, and that's going to be an interesting one. England will be playing against USA. And now let's end this with Mr. and Mrs. today. And of course, the first person speaking today is Mrs. Mrs. says, you are giving me just 30,000 naira as housekeeping allowance for the months. That's a laugh. I'm a manager in my place of work, for crying out loud. And Mr. replied, if truly you are a manager, show your skill, manage the money for the month. Abba, Mr. 30,000 naira. I mean, Mrs. is telling you that 30,000 naira is too small. Well, of course, when you're talking about this, Mr. and Mrs., when married people, don't put your mouth in their matter. So I'm sure they will settle it. Now, today is Friday. Do well to follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. My name is Damlola Okushakin. Have a lovely weekend. Thank God it's Friday.